So, if Edinburgh Castle is the Mott, then that thing is definitely the Bailey. So what happens inside St Giles tends to be quite significant, being as it's one of the most important Christian sites in world history, with the island to the west being obviously a firm contender, although the island to the west, I must confess, is favours. But because this is based in central Edinburgh, of course, this is some contested territory, to put it mildly. We are effectively playing capture the flag, aren't we, in public bodies. The St Giles is one of the most public bodies you can possibly find. Being a Christian place of worship, it doesn't even admit places like me. So you get to sit there and think. But if you had to actually do anything inside there, obviously photography is not permitted for good reason, but if you want to sort of think about matters, again, you have to sort of think about posterity, history, and living up to the virtues that built the place in the first place. But the review, I think, for the 11 a.m. Sunday service is typically the Presbyterian and the smaller one are both blokes you could, of course, underestimate until they open their mouths. And of course, you realise that in any kind of intellectual altercation, they're going to tear your face off. I mean, the level of just the level of rhetoric is appropriate for the time. I mean, at this time you've got to think about behaving humanely, and of course the humane view is now coming towards people across the country being repeatedly stabbed and murdered on a sort of daily list of atrocities. So the pathos is switching towards individual security, national security, a lack of internal policing in places like Birmingham, that kind of stuff. So to resolve that, logically, the only place to resolve it is places like this. But the capture of the flag element, of course, comes from Sigrid, who still managed to reel off the critical social justice spiel that we've all heard 1,000 times before. But of course, that's the good bit about this kind of stuff. It kind of rings hollow in people's ears. It doesn't stir people's spirits, because we know it's not true. It's sort of empty words. So compassion for others is, of course, vital. And again, however we resolve the current crisis we're in, it has to be done in a humane manner. But I think Sigrid, of course, he could be possibly following Kaufman's idea of worship of the weak being sort of misfiring in that kind of sense. So possibly she may want to rethink her position on certain matters. But you don't really heckle inside St Giles, it's not that kind of place. But we're heckling, of course, the universities. So we're heckling Birmingham University quite strongly by perhaps suggesting that David Gilbourne be arrested. So if his addition to a volume he put his name to on the third edition, I think was the most recent of the one he put his name to, and he's putting in, just don't go and look at Rufo because it embarrasses me and think the legal influences may subject me to serious legal penalties, including being arrested, then the guy is giving you the evidence, isn't it? So if I go into a police station and everyone says, oh, where's the evidence? Well, it's a book, you buy it. But people in Birmingham don't buy books, do they? They wave them about and expect people to read them. People in the court office do read them and say, I'm sorry, this person doesn't belong here, what are they doing here? And they don't get removed. So the Brummies still aren't getting it. I mean, they're playing around with laptops and creating fictitious bureaucrats who don't exist. But the fictitious bureaucrat can't walk into that building, can't have a conversation, whereas I can. If the people in the renting court service want to come down, if the managing director wants to pop down and have a chat about her words and actions in Birmingham, Nicky Brennan, John Cotton, Chris Naylor, Bridget Jones, most of Birmingham Labour effectively, most of the HR department, of course, from 2020 until now, certainly back to Dawn Hewins, basically everybody who wrecked the compliance department, all these idiots who tried to play around with it, they didn't know what we were doing, they didn't actually know how the job works, they caused serious damage, all the people who've done damage to the housing stock, causing their tenants to be physically attacked and threatened, that kind of stuff, the lack of medical provision because Varney was in charge, wasting public health resources on all the nonsense. We could look at how much that took up when late father died of cancer because of the missed tumour. You can pay the family back for that as well. So the NHS, that was a failing as well. We had to get away from them, and even the private doctors screwed it up. But we can do this kind of stuff. Because you're not interested in money once again, these people just don't get it. You can come at them with full force and they're sort of scrabbling around for pennies behind the mattress in a patronage network that's going to dry up soon when the economy collapses, a pension that's never going to turn up and full of hostile gangs who hate them. So you can say this is words on a page or images on a screen or just an addition to the postmodern milieu. But no, in terms of Birmingham, they're going to be panicking as the criminal networks start being picked apart. We've now got a basic foundation for audit. If Oracle's working, people can actually audit a database then. So forensic auditors can go in and look at where the money has gone, but the money has gone is linked to where the activists have gone. So you can't do one or the other separately. You've got to have people in who know how to find these people, know how to identify them, know how to interview them, and most importantly, know how to get them out of the organisation so they don't belong there because they're dangerous. If I'm being locked out of meetings in a compliance department by what amounts to local gangs, then you cannot then go and tell the credit card companies that we are legally compliant because you're doing a checklist or someone has got a pen and paper on their desk when we've got all this obvious gang activity that we're viewing from space. So because the IT security of the guys at Green Lane isn't that good, you can get into their meetings quite easily and catch them. But once they've been caught, it's fairly obvious that their leader's going to have a heart attack, isn't it? We don't need the police to physically show up at his home. He knows he's been caught, he knows he's in serious trouble, he's going to be deported at some point. So they're now sort of hiding behind computers again and playing these silly games. But the rot is West Midlands Police, because of the politicisation at the top of the force, it could only be politicised in that city with people like Naylor and Varney buggering about. Both of them should have been nicked many years ago. But because there's nobody credible leading it, we don't have the manpower because there's nobody to lead. If you're a policeman in the West Midlands, who are you going to follow at the moment in terms of the leadership, the Police and Crime Commissioner? If it kicks off tomorrow, are you going to actually show up for work? Well, probably not really, are you? But the problem, as we've established from November to now, is insoluble. If they're creating fake bureaucrats to avoid obeying the law, then the only response left is internal security. So it is a case of rapid general election and a rapid defence review now. Starmer's guy is gone, so we can get proper internal security, remove people who are hostile to us, get border control, get a new Home Office, that kind of stuff, and get serious about governance so this never happens again. But once again, when these idiots wake up on Monday, they can get off their backside and go and fetch West Midlands Police, whoever exists there, because what they never got is a lot of these people passing through the city are just mercenaries. They just want money. And at the end of the day, even though we're still going to tear the place apart and we're going to shell it from orbit, we would actually organise artillery strikes if it came down to it, to level buildings just to gain control. But we can do that kind of stuff with drones. That we're not abandoning that city to the sort of filth that took it over. The ghost of Birmingham Labour is being torn out by the roots. We can exercise the ghost from Birmingham University at some point via the police. And at some point we'll get it back to, I don't even know. We've got to think about what Birmingham could be, a positive vision after it's sink into the gutter. There's plenty of industry, isn't there, if we reopen the North Sea, and there's all sorts of stuff that could be done in Birmingham to regenerate it, supply chains, that kind of stuff. But I'm sure that'll happen organically too. So it could have a bright future still. But it's clearing the rats and the feral commies and all the apparatchiks out and getting leadership in who is going to kick out people causing trouble. And again, what was said on the way out, by the way, in November last year remains. If in my absence, if I ever do return to that city, I find people weaker than me are being messed around by the type of gangsters that are milling about the place now, I will come for you personally. All resources I have left in my body will come to look at going after people who hurt children in that city, after the managing director is playing around with that kind of stuff. It's not an acceptable way to behave. if you've lived there since birth and of course you've inherited the right to be there, I'm afraid I get to opine on the state of the place. It's an absolute shithole. So no more of this. Joanne Roney's getting nicked, and whoever replaces in the Labour Reform Coalition can. I mean, obviously they have to now engage in a sensible adult process with the people who've got their hands in the guts of your databases and are going to keep twisting and pulling until the crooks are removed. You probably can actually do database work, to be fair, in St Giles. Just go in on a Monday if it's really important and type things into a laptop. So when it comes to actually interviewing Southall under caution, we'll probably do that because, again, she is going to jail for quite a long time.